So, the folks at Amazon have just released the first official update of Zbrush for iPad, and this new installment of Zbrush for iPad now comes with a couple of features to compensate for lots of features that were missing from the desktop version. And this includes support for UVs and texture mapping, updates to the custom toolbar, undo history, the hover state for Apple Pencil, reference image integration, placement maps, and also surface noise. And like we all know, earlier within the year, the folks at Pixelogic did release Zbrush for iPad, and this was a highly anticipated release, and this came with a lot of functionalities and over 200 of the most popular brushes that artists got to use with the desktop version. Alongside this was a lot of other toolsets and also a lot of other improvements that were available for ZBrush, which include the Dynamesh, the Live Boolean, and lots of tiny and dynamic tools for making simulation for clothes and poly painting. And with this new update, there is a lot more that artists can now do. As with the brand new version, artists can now proceed to start making their very own custom toolbars exactly how they want it with toolsets and also alphas, as you can deduct and also select multiple brushes and multiple tools from the default toolbar and transfer them to your custom bar. At the same time, you can make multiple custom bars and put specified brushes that you would like to work with. So maybe you like to have some hard surface brushes, some tool sets within the hard surface brushes, or possibly you want to make some customized brush sets specifically for cloth simulations. You can now do that. Something else that is very interesting to see with this release update for Zbrush for iPad is undo history. Finally, we have undo history, and this is by far one of the coolest things that a lot of ZBrush artists would have definitely wanted. Now, this doesn't just come as, the typical undo history that you get every other place, but it comes with all the bells and whistles that you will need if you're working from the desktop version. One of them has to do with undo history settings, and within the undo history setting, you will be able to increase the number of undos that you want. You can enable saving, optimize, add some compression. You can also have some deletion. So just in case you like to delete stuff, you can. At the same time, you can bookmark your undo history, and that is one of the cool things with ZBrush undo history. So for example, if you do have a sculpt and you get to a specific point in time that you like to preserve, you can simply use the bookmark option and bookmark that time. And once you bookmark that time, you can proceed to add some sculpting depending on what you want, and you can sculpt for as long as you can. Now, why this is very important is in certain situations, you may want to recall certain details, and that is where the history recall brush that works with the marker for your undo history comes in pretty handy. And with that, you can recall your history based off the saved bookmark point. And that is really cool. And this can be done forward and also done backwards. And of course, if you're thinking about clearing the marker, yes, you can. And you can also proceed to delete your history. And this would definitely help in making your files lighter. Some other interesting updates that are now here deals with UVs and textures. And this is really cool because at this point, you can now create UVs inside of ZBrush. And with this, you can create UVs with a variation of industry standard UV tiles. So whether you're trying to make an AUV, a PUV, or a GUV tile, you can now simply do that. More so, you can choose to delete your UVs if this is what you want. And this also offers some very interesting options where you can select UVs based off categories. At this point, it's set to be that you can crank this all the way to 8K, but if you like to use the preset, you can definitely get up to 4K UV tiles in here. And that is really cool. And of course, with UVs comes texturing. As with this new update, you can import your textures from other tools and apply them to your model. The texture update comes with almost everything you need for making textures. And if you like to project onto your model via the poly paint, this reacts exactly how you expect it to be. So you need to turn on RGB just like you would do on your desktop. And from there, you can project the texture as poly paint onto the model. And of course, if you like to make adjustments to the texturing, which is now your poly paint, you can obviously do this by muffing your UV, and from there you can start making sculpt decisions, or you can proceed to start painting the entire piece. So this is super useful, and a lot of people will find this really handy. And with this texture altered and the poly paint done, you can now create textures from this poly paint and export it for use in other DCC tools. And while we speak about texturing, displacement maps are now supported with this version. Alongside this, ZBrush for iPad now ships with updates for reference images. So at this point, you will be able to bring in reference images and use this as guides when making your model. It is also worth mentioning that this also offers some reference image options, which allows you to enhance opacity so you can see through the model. And of course, for those who like to project their references onto their meshes, the project on mesh is also available with this release, and you can now use this to do more. And while we're still on the topic of textures, there is also the new update for surface noise. So surface noises are definitely something that is pretty cool, and having them in ZBrush for iPad is now really nice, because despite the fact that you do have access to the surface noises which you can work with, you can add your own alphas and use those to drive the surface noise. Additionally, if you would like to use your camera to capture images from real world and use them as surface noise textures, you can also do that. And this also offers a ton of parameters that you can tweak to make the best out of the image or the alpha that you're working with. Alongside this, there's also some parameters for curves which you can use to either increase brightness or the contrast of the noise texture. There's also a color section which allows for blending colors, and for the most part, if you've always wanted to add surfacing details to your model, then Zbrush for iPad is definitely going to do that super easily and nicely right now. And finally, there's a huge update to the Apple Pencil which is now available. So with Apple Pencil, you now have a ton of enhancements which deals with you hovering the pencil across any object inside of Zbrush for iPad. You'll be able to see a tooltip of the object itself, and if this tool has a shortcut, that would also be displayed. And if you simply go over to the settings, you can choose to turn on or turn off the tooltip. It is also worth mentioning that if you're also thinking about having this tooltip to appear only when the keyboard is attached, then you can also select that option. And depending on the keyboard that you're using with your iPad, you can also change the shortcut format of what gets to be displayed. The second update for this has to do with hover and roll feature that comes with the brand new Apple Pencil. Of course, this gives you haptic feedback when you're working with it. However, once you hover across the 4 major control tools that you use in sculpting, which deals with the RGB intensity, the draw size, the focal shift, and the Z intensity, you no longer need to click and drag. All you need to do is hover around it, and you can roll your Apple Pencil to increase and reduce intensity and brush size. And just like we have with the tooltip, if you go over to the user setting, you can also choose to turn on or turn off the allow roll gesture. So this is it. These are the major updates, improvements, and new features that are now available with Zbrush for iPad 2025.1. I would like to know which of these features you like the most. Up until now, there is no conversation about the ZModeller brush, but hopefully that will be coming in subsequent releases. I kind of think that the way Maxon is going about this is making Forger a modeling tool and leaving ZBrush to do all of the sculpting, but hopefully we're going to be getting the ZModeller brush sometime in the future. Tell me what you guys think about this one in the comment section. If you like this video, hit the like button, and if you're not subscribed, consider hitting the subscribe button so you don't miss the next video or the next update. And until I see you guys in the next one, peace.